Hello there, and thanks for joining me. I'm Corel Painter Master Aaron Rutten, and in this video, I'm going to critique some digital art from one of my viewers. This is a painting by Iuliswag. Iuliswag is a 12-year-old self-taught art student, and this painting is the Sprite bottle imagined as an anime character. This was painted on a smartphone using the Infinite Painter app. So I'm going to go ahead and critique this as if it were my own painting. What would I change? I'm going to go ahead and bring up some notes here. Let's start with the areas that I really like on this painting. I really like the way that the hair is shaded and blended. It contours to the shape of the head, and there's lots of depth and dimension to it. It looks really good. The liquid effect in the background looks really good. I like that a lot. It really looks like the inside of a Sprite bottle. And these bubbles down here on the bottom, these are really nice as well. It gives it a nice fizzy effect and kind of blends into the dress. As far as what I think could be improved, there's a little bit of jaggedness here on the arm. I feel like down here under the arms, it could be a little bit darker to add some more contrast to this piece. The neck's kind of going at a weird angle. I would fix that. Because there's all these nice reflections going on, I would reflect some environment color in the eyes. I'd add a highlight to the tip of the nose to make it look more three-dimensional. I might add a little bit of a color cast to the shadow being cast by the hair onto the skin. The jawline is noticeably asymmetrical, so we'd want to go ahead and even that out. I'll show you a little flip canvas trick you can use to help you with that. And then finally, the Sprite bottle I feel could be at a different angle and it could be a bit larger. So those are my suggested changes. I'll go ahead and demonstrate how I would do those changes. Now, all I have here is a flat image. I don't have all the layers, so it'll be a little tricky to edit this. It'd probably be easier to edit if I had all the layers, but since I don't, I'm going to do it a different way. So I'm going to hide my notes. I've created a duplicate of the artwork. Let's go ahead and start with the Sprite bottle. I'm going to select my lasso selection tool, and I'm going to drag a loose selection around the Sprite bottle just to get everything here. Then I'm going to copy, and I'm going to paste. You can get to those from the edit menu, copy and paste. I'm going to name that copied part of the layer bottle, and I'm going to go ahead and hide the visibility of the edit layer that I'm working on and the canvas so that I can see this transparency checker pattern here. And on the bottle layer, I'm going to add a mask. I'm going to select black, and I'll select the airbrush. I'll also zoom in a bit here. I'm going to set the opacity of my airbrush up to 100%, and with a smaller airbrush, I'll just go and airbrush around the edges here to erase the background. So now that I've erased the background surrounding the bottle, I'll go ahead and right-click on the layer mask, and I'll choose Apply Layer Mask. Then I notice that the bottle is a little asymmetrical, meaning it's not the same shape on both sides. There's a couple different ways you could fix that. One is you could select the pinch brush, and you could go through and just paint along the edges here and try to sculpt it into a more symmetrical shape. Or you can just use your rectangular selection tool, drag a selection around about half of the bottle here. Let's go ahead and go to Edit, Copy, then we'll go to Select, Invert Selection to turn the selection inside out. Then we'll go to Edit, Clear, and I'm going to deselect the selection with Control D. I'm going to go to Edit, Paste in Place to paste that half of the bottle. Then I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. And I'm going to select my black arrow layer adjuster tool. And I'll just use the right arrow key on my keyboard to nudge this over. So now it's more symmetrical on both sides. I can go ahead and hold Shift to select the other half of the bottle, hit Control E to merge the bottle together. Now I'll hit Control T on my keyboard. I'll go ahead and expand this a little bit to make it wider. I'm going to select the top part of the bottle here. I'm going to hit Control T. I'm going to scale that down a bit. Might even use my eraser just to shave off a bit of the bottom there. Let's go ahead and bring back our background now. And let's hide our bottle. Now we'll want to do kind of the opposite. We'll want to erase the bottle here, but maintain the pattern in the background. So to do that, we can select the clone brush. I'm going to click on the rubber stamp tool here. Then I'm going to hold Alt and I'll click on a point on the background. And I can simply just click here. And I'm basically taking the background from one area and putting it over in the other area. All right, so now that I've erased the bottle, I can bring the bottle layer back. And let's just hit Control T to transform this bottle and make it bigger. You want to think about how big the bottle is compared to your hand when you're holding it. So I would say it's probably closer to that. Now, as far as the angle of the bottle, the perspective of the bottle almost implies that the horizon line is here. You can gauge that by the eye line of the subject in the painting, which could also be the eye line of the viewer of the painting. So I would say this angle and this angle seem correct for that particular perspective. However, the hand is tilted a little bit down at an angle, so you might think that the bottle might be a little bit tilted too. So if you wanted to, you could change the perspective of the bottle a little bit and have a little bit more of the opening showing up there at the top. Might also look good to go ahead and rotate the angle of the bottle just a little bit so that maybe it's leaning against the hand a little bit. I'm going to move it down past the palm of the hand just a bit and add a mask. I'll select black. I'll select the airbrush. And I'll just mask out that area of the hand there. I'll select white. And if I overpainted, I'll just go ahead and bring it back in like so. Now it looks a little more like the bottle is sitting in the hand. The bottle is very shiny plastic, so it should have a little bit of reflection as well. I'm going to add a new layer, call it Bottle Ref, short for Bottle Reflection. I'm going to go ahead and apply that layer mask. I'm going to click on the bottle layer, right click on it, and choose Select Layer Content. That'll get a selection of that layer. I'll hide the selection with Control-Shift-H. I'll go back to the bottle ref layer. I'll select my airbrush, and I'll select white. Now if we look at our eyes, our light source is coming from the left side, top left. So that'll be the light source for the bottle as well. Put in a little bit of highlight here on the bottle. If you overpaint too much, you can always switch to your eraser and erase a little bit. Might also use the detail oils brush just to paint right along the edge here, just to help that stand out a bit. On the far side, we'll add a little bit of that shadow color. That just helps it stand out from the background because the background is a very similar color. You can make it a little bit darker, a little bit more blue, and we can go right along the bottom as well to add a bit of a shadow here where it meets the hand. I might use the airbrush for that. And since it's a reflective object, we want to reflect some of the background color. And it wouldn't hurt to reflect some of the skin color as well. If there's liquid in the bottle as well, you might want to imply that just by drawing a little bit of a line there. Keep that line pretty level. I'll just touch up the highlights just a bit more. I think that looks pretty good. And maybe we'll just enhance these little dimple shapes that are on the bottle by giving them a little bit of a shadow opposite the light source. And I think that looks pretty good for the bottle. I know the bottle's not the main focus of this piece, so we don't need to put a whole lot of detail into it. Now let's move on to the next step, which is adding a highlight to the nose. I'll create a layer for nose. I'll select white. I'm going to select the detail oils brush. Any thin brush will work. I'll need to deselect my active selection by hitting Control D. And then on the nose layer, I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight using the detail oils or any other fine brush like that. You could add a little bit of highlight to the lip as well if you wanted to. While we're looking at the head up close here, let's do a little bit of work on the jawline and the neck. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call it neck. And I'm just going to correct the neck a little bit here. It needs to curve back towards the ear. It's going off at an angle. I think the other side looks pretty good, but it could be just a bit thicker. And for the jawline, we can just go back to the edit layer, and I'll use the pinch brush for this. And I'm just going to pinch right along the edge of this line. I'm going to try not to get anything but the jaw if I can. Now it's natural for most people to draw asymmetrically like you've done here. I do it all the time. So what can be helpful is if you flip your canvas horizontally. That'll help you better judge the other side. And if your hand has trouble drawing at certain angles, this gives you an opportunity to draw that same angle from a different side. So I can see here, I need to even this out a little bit more. That looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and flip the canvas back and go back to that neck layer. It looks like I need to add a little bit more to that. And I'll just clean that jawline back up by drawing in that line again. That looks better for the neck and the jawline. Let's add a little bit of reflection to the eyes while we're at it. I'm going to create a new layer, call it eyes. The eyes can reflect everything surrounding the eyes, which would be the hair and the environment colors, which we could put in just as little spots. I think that looks good and adds some life to the eyes. Next, let's take care of the aliasing on the arm. We'll go to the edit layer. That's the whole flattened image here. I'm going to select the pinch brush. And I'll just pinch right along that edge to pinch those pixels together. That gets rid of that jaggedness. I'm using a big brush and pretty long strokes. It's going to pinch in some of the background too, but that doesn't seem to really hurt it here. You can also use this to correct the shape of the arm if you wanted to. I feel like that elbow is a bit too pointy. Now let's go ahead and darken some of these areas here under the arms. I'm going to create a new layer. I'll call it shadows. I'm going to select the airbrush, And I'm going to sample this darkest color here. Let's make it a bit darker and a bit cooler. Let's also set the composite method of that layer to multiply. And I'll paint in a little bit more shadow here. I'm going to go ahead and reset the airbrush so that it's using a lower opacity. That'll help me build it up more slowly. Have it kind of fade from dark to light, starting at the top and working down. We'll do a little bit of that next to the head as well. Make my color a little bit darker, a little bit more blue. And anywhere where you overpaint, you can always switch to your eraser and just erase. Now if we zoom out, you can see that adds a little more contrast. If it's too much contrast, you can always reduce the opacity of that layer until you find a balance that you like. Just want to make it a little bit darker, but not too dark. I think something like that looks pretty good to me. Now I want to change the tone of the shadow areas a little bit, because the shadows are a bit too neutral considering all the blues and greens that are going on in this environment. They should have a little bit of color cast. So let's go ahead and create a new layer. Let's set the composite method to overlay. Let's go to our color sampler tool. Let's just sample one of these blue-green colors. And let's go ahead and fill. Now we can reduce the opacity of that layer a bit. That adds a little bit of cast over everything. Let's create another new layer. Let's also set that to overlay. And let's choose kind of a medium blue-green like this. Let's go ahead and fill again. And I'm focusing mainly on the shadows. I think I like that color there. I'm going to add a mask to that layer. I'm going to select black, and I'm going to fill the mask with black. And I'm going to select white in the airbrush. And inside of that mask, I'm just going to paint on the shadow areas. That'll cool them off a little bit. And if I do a before and after, you can see the effect that's having. Cool shadows rather than warm shadows. And again, you can reduce the opacity if you want it to blend in. And I think that's all that I would add to this particular piece. I really like this piece a lot. I like the concept and I like the color scheme, and it's very well drawn. You did an excellent job here, Iuliswag. Thanks for letting me critique your work. And let's take a look at a side-by-side comparison to see the before and after. Now my version came out a little bit cooler. That's kind of a creative choice on my part, but you could certainly make it more green if you wanted to. A good way to do that would be just to go to Effects, Tonal Control, Adjust Colors, and then just shift the hue a bit more towards green. I hope everyone found this information helpful. If you did, take a quick second to like this video. And if you're new to my channel, I'd love to have you subscribe. I have a lot more digital art critiques like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.